one thing that I notice in the carnivore community is there seems to be kind of like two main groups. There seems to be this group that's like, you have to eat nose to tail, you have to get, the highest quality meat, you need to eat organs, supplement with organs. And then that's kind of turned into like, okay, then you're supposed to eat fruit and fruit juice and all this other stuff. There's this other like kind of category of people that are just like, they just eat meat. And that's really the start and the end of it. And they go and live their lives and they seem to be absolutely fine for years just doing that. And so, how do you approach your carnivore diet?
Yeah, I I guess lucky for me, back 13 years ago when I was in with Charles Washington, Dana Spencer, she's another one who's been at this probably 14 years. Kelly Hogan came into the group about maybe almost a year after I was in there, and then we were all talking to her to walk her off the cliff of her sugar-free Jello and all this stuff, and we were just kind of all talking in there, and I loved the fact that, well, I'll start with the fact that I don't like organs. I don't like liver. I've had kidney a couple times. I think when I was a kid, my mom made it, but I'm not eating spleen and thymus and heart and all that. And so I loved that Charles didn't, Dana didn't. We're like, you know what? If I have such a distaste for it, how could I possibly think that that is so important for my health and nutrition going forward? That was number one. Number two, if a big beast is killed and dragged back to the village, and there's whatever, 50, 80 people, I don't know, whatever, there's only one organ. It's not like everybody's like chowing down and everybody's going to get a piece of it anyway. But I was, whether I wanted to convince myself it wasn't necessarily necessary, or I guess I just did convince myself it wasn't necessary. All I can say is, I've gone over a decade now, not eating organs. I feel great. I really, here's the other thing. I like to keep it simple. I really feel so important to eat fatty meat. It can't be lean, boneless, skinless chicken breast and fish. You got to eat fatty meat. Fat is really important. And I'm finding that out more and more recently because I've kind of changed the way I eat a bit just by eating higher fat, but I'm still eating the same way, but just a much higher fat percentage. But the real interesting thing about this whole organ discussion is, number one, I tend to have a hard time listening to and believing people who are owners of a company and prominently selling the desiccated, dried organs. Okay. Not that there's anything wrong with that. And if they put out a good argument and put out enough studies to show people they need this, then great. But here's the thing. Nobody gave a crap when you're eating Pop-Tarts and cereal and oatmeal and pancakes and, nachos grande and chips and fajita, all your normal standard atrocious diet, that SAD, it's supposed to be standard American diet. I call it the standard atrocious diet. Nobody brings up whether you're eating an organ or not. Nobody talks about it, right? It's okay back then when you're eating all that shit that you have no organs, but now all of a sudden you're eating this natural way of eating fatty meat and eggs. And now it's so important that people are freaking out. Do I need organs? How much organs do I need? I don't like organs. It's like this big prominent thing. And I say, just chill out. Just listen to your body. And I start thinking, okay, what is potentially wrong with my body that I'm not getting all this organ meat, right? I've got strong hair. I've got great teeth. My eyes are white. My nails are good. My skin is good. I have no acne, psoriasis, eczema. What's my indicator of poor health here, right? But then somebody could say, well, maybe you'd be in better health if you ate organs. All right, there's a point there. I don't know, what's better than great. I don't know, but and I will say this, because of curiosity and always keeping an open mind, I really try to, in a huge way, not be dogmatic and be open. Be open to an argument that we should be eating honey and fruit. Okay, that came out, and I've had so many people say they got so derailed by listening to that. I never went down that route recently when this came out, I don't know, a year or two ago, when somebody started doing that. I never ventured there because I know I can't, as a sugar addict, I can't put honey and fruit in. And then next thing I know, I mean, I can't eat half a mango. I want the other half. And if I don't eat the other half, if I restrain myself and I put it away and I go about doing something, the damn mango is calling my name the rest of the day. And I'm like, well, might as well just finish it so I don't have to think about it tomorrow. And then tomorrow it's, well, now what do I want? And now what am I craving? So it was a total no-go. And I feel it does a disservice to propose that people need fruit in their diet and need a certain percent of carbohydrate in your diet when it's so not true. I mean, my thyroid's perfect, my sleep's perfect, my electrolytes, I don't know, I'm not testing myself. I have no need to keep getting tested for a lot of different things, because, I just don't feel that it does good to say that that is necessary, especially when that person himself has not come from an obesity background, an addiction background, somebody who had been stuck on, all that garbage and binged on it. There's clearly not a binge eating disorder there. And to not take that huge percentage of the population in consideration when making that recommendation is just wrong. I mean, without at least giving a side warning for those of you who have come from this background and have a hard time controlling your sugar intake, you might think twice about eating pineapple and papaya and honey,
Yeah.
putting honey on your meat.
Yeah, no, I totally, 100% agree. I love that very thoughtful answer. And that's my biggest problem with it. It's the people that I coach that are getting confused by this advice, that you're right, they don't have that same background. And once they get that carbohydrate in them, they really can't stop. I was the same way. I have to be abstinent. I can't touch the stuff because I won't stop. And on that note, Bethany sends her apologies, my wife, that she could be on this call. She really wanted to talk to you. And she did send me a few questions. And there is a question here about seasonal carbohydrates. So I want to ask you that question. But before we do, she wanted to ask the questions and kind of the women versus men kind of question. And so I want to ask you, as somebody so experienced, should women be eating vastly different than men, or should they be approaching things pretty much the same?
Looking into that, it's very hard because pretty much every question that people ask is really hard to scientifically answer. The reason why it takes about $2 million to run a proper study. Who's going to profit? The reason why studies are done is for it to profit either a pharmaceutical or some sort of industry. So, and the other thing, it's so almost impossible in today's day and age, and I will say impossible, to do a proper study. And by that, I mean, if you have a large enough group of people in the study, you would literally have to sequester them, because you can't go by people's memories of what they ate. You can't count on the fact, oh, I had 3 weddings last year, and yeah, I kind of went off the rails at the wedding, and yeah, probably for maybe a week or 2 after, or a couple months after. Like, there's no way to have like a real appropriate, let's call it carnivore study. And especially now you're talking about doing one with and without seasonal fruit, right? So all we can really go by is just logically thinking. Fruit right now is so modified to be these big sugar bombs, okay? Back in the day, way back, let's call it hundreds of thousands of years ago, the fruit was a tiny sour crabapple, sour tart cherries, okay? And only seasonally. And there's such a huge percentage of the plant world is actually poisonous, poison berries, right? So it's, in my mind, I cannot, my brain cannot compute that women need to eat some fruit to keep their hormones healthy. Um, and as far as the question between men and women, men have testosterone, men have hormonal issues too. It's not just women. And ultimately, it goes down to what I really still keep going by is that our bodies are here to evolutionally stay here. Our bodies are not programmed to slide into a disease state on their own. They are constantly striving to survive, right? We have hunger, so we survive, so we eat. We have thirst, so we survive, so we drink. We get cut, it repairs. We get a bacteria infection, our body knows how to fight it off. We get a virus, our body increases us, has a fever. That's another thing. Please don't take Tylenol and Motrin when you get a fever. Let the high temperature of your body do its job. Stop putting drugs in your body, especially these over-the-counter drugs that are just so overused and unnecessary. Our bodies are constantly driven to get to the healthy state, get to its status quo, if allowed. And, I say, fruits, fructose in fruit, you could, so this is the hard part about this whole thing. There is so much, and I'll just call it noise. It's not that it's noise, but you know what I mean? It's all opposing viewpoints, okay? And it's very difficult to figure out what's right to do. And I just think that, yeah, somebody could say, well, somebody has said, well, when I was carnivore long term, it ruined my electrolytes, or it ruined, I can't even remember in specific, because it's so difficult to try to decipher what is actually happening. But I think that in general, keeping it simple is the best. It's just the best, because think back to ancestrally, we were meant to be outside in the sunshine, grounding in our bare feet, walk on the grass, walk on the dirt, walk on the sand, step on rocks, hug a tree, whatever floats your boat, swim in a lake. It's so important to connect with nature and be outside and get proper sleep and eat proper food. What I was saying about all the imposing views and noises, you could watch a video by Robert Lustig, and it's just all about how toxic sugar is, and fructose is a total no. And then you have Saladino there eating the pineapple and the papaya and the honey. And now you're like, all right, well, he's a physician. Now what? And I get it. And then I get the brunt of it, because then I have people coming to me and says, he says this and he says this and she says that. Now what? I'm like, you know what? You're your own N=1 experiment. And that's what I've had to, we all have to go by that, because I'm going back to this. You can't find an appropriate study that's going to prove. All we have right now is hundreds of thousands of testimonies and anecdotal stories of person after person getting off their meds, feeling better, resolving their anxiety and depression, overcoming bipolar disorder, getting rid of diabetes, getting off their blood pressure meds, dropping weight. It's just, how could all these people be wrong by eating this animal-based way? It just, that doesn't make sense either. And it's almost like, well, we're kind of our own living, study. And it's not easy. I just keep saying, you know what, this is a journey that we're all on. And I just call it, and when people write to me and thank me for either these interviews or all the Instagram posts that I put out and all that, and I just write back to them, I say, thank you for allowing me to be part of your journey to optimal health, because we're all in this together. And that's why I love the groups, the coaching groups. It's like, it brings people together to not feel so outcast from society, because we just eat in such a different way.